God bless you. Hi everyone, and welcome to my history homework. Sorry about the little venue change. My cat's sick right now, and so I have to take care of him. That's what this little tail is. So if you hear sneezing, it's him, not me. I'm not sick. He is. There are a few things I would like to mention about Marie Antoinette before the revolution ever happened. One of the main things is that it's said that she had a difficult marriage and that she also had few duties as the French queen. Another little fun fact that I would like to mention is that it is said she had a model farm, and her handmaids would sometimes dress up and play peasant and pretend to be farmers and shepherdess. Or milkmaids, sorry, my apologies, milkmaids and shepherdess. So even the nobility liked to play peasant, just like the peasants liked to play nobility. Another fact about Marie Antoinette before the revolution ever started, she was always blamed for all of France's problems while she was in power. So if the French people were angry for some reason, they'd always blame Marie Antoinette, with no reasoning behind it. Another big fact before the revolution ever started was that France was in debt. Major debt, because they paid a bunch of money to America to help them with their revolution before they ever started theirs. This caused France to go into debt, and then, because they were in debt, and debt's bad, all the French people blamed Marie Antoinette because they were in debt. It also didn't help that with the debt, the wealthy never paid taxes, the nobility never paid taxes, the clergy never paid taxes, so the only people who paid taxes were the peasants. They paid taxes to the wealthy, and that was about it, and sometimes they'd pay it to the state. And that's how they were trying to get out of debt, with the money that the peasants gave them. You know what that means? Because you're in debt and you need more money, you tax more. That made the people very angry. They then blamed Marie Antoinette for all the taxation, even though it wasn't her fault. It was Louis in the first place, Louis XVI. Now, the next big thing that happened was the peasants making the National Assembly after they no longer wanted to be a part of the Estates General. After making the National Assembly and taking their power into their own hands, they still blamed Marie for all the problems that the country was having. They even went so far as to have cartoonists make cartoons of her, depicting her as the Austrian whore, and that she was the reason that France was doing so terribly, and she was undermining the French government, I guess. Eventually, the French royalty were moved from Versailles to Paris. After this major event happened, Louis and Marie decided that they both wanted to escape from France. So they decided to go to the French border in secrecy. The main plan was to go to the border and go towards Austria, meet up with Marie's brother, the king, or what is that called? I can't remember these things. Let me check my notes. The leader of the Holy Roman Empire, meet up with him, who was waiting for them just across the border with troops and the military, and then once they had them in Austria, they would send in the military, take down the peasants, and put the monarchy back in its place. The problem was that never came to fruition. A lot of the peasants already knew Louis's face because his face was everywhere on the money, so they noticed him, they caught him and Marie, and they were both shoved back into the palace. This idea of Marie and Louis wanting to escape, the people thought came from Marie, especially because it had to do with her brother in Austria, and after that they only counted her as a traitor to the French. They never believed that she could ever be a part of their country and love it as much as Louis did. After Marie Antoinette's escape trial, France decided to go to war with Austria due to them trying to intervene in their revolution. France then began to lose the war because they did not have a leader in power that knew how to run the military, I guess. And then they blamed Marie Antoinette for all of their failures. This eventually led to the Terror that had begun. If you don't know what the Terror is, that's when the French killed about 16,000 to 17,000 nobles just because they thought that they were mean. They didn't like them, so they killed them all just to get them out of power. During this time, Marie watched her best friend, Princessa de Lamballe, I think that's how you say it. Well, she watched her best friend be dismembered, and then they being Parisians, took her body parts and patrolled them, flaunted them throughout the streets of Paris. In January, her husband, Louis XVI, was executed. In July of 1793, she lost custody of one of her sons, and he was then forced to accuse his mother of sexual abuse and incest, which then led her to be guilty, which then led her to be convicted and eventually put on the guillotine. It's a very, very sad story for Marie Antoinette because it seemed like the people never liked her because she was a foreign queen. And throughout all of the trials she went through in France, it didn't seem like she could ever be on the good side of the French people. It's sad that they spun her story in this way, and we will never know the truth of how Marie actually was as a queen or as a person. They didn't care about the Marie Antoinette under the crown. All they cared about was the image that they made of her. The terrible, terrible Austrian whore that they thought she was. Thank you all for watching, and I hope you learned something. Also, in case you're wondering, here's my cat, my sick cat. He's fine. He just has a cold and is sneezing a lot.